Welcome to RPV City Talk. RPV City Talk is brought to you by the City of Rancho Palos Verdes to inform the community on recent city matters. RPV City Talk is a weekly show that features the RPV mayor, city council, or city employees.
Hi everyone, I'm Liz Brown Swanson and welcome to RPV City Talk on the road. Today we're going to talk about crime and safety in our community. I'm here at the Lomita Sheriff's Station with Captain Blaine Bolin. Thank you always for joining us to give our community, the residents, an update on what's happening with law enforcement efforts in the Hill, and thanks again for taking time out of your schedule. So,
You're welcome.
Just start off the latest statistics that have been released here in terms of what's happening with crime on the Palos Verdes Peninsula.
Okay, well, we finished 2013 up a bit. There were increase in property crimes, particularly grand theft auto, which has not been a significant issue in recent years, but it was in 2013. We finished up in that and up 6% in our residential burglaries, which is always a concern for us. But I'm here to say, since we've turned the page into 2014, we're down significantly. We're down 70% in our auto thefts so far this first quarter of the year. That's huge. And also our residential burglaries were down significantly as well.
So the trend is we're seeing crime dropping.
We are.
Which is good. And of course, we also remind everybody in our community that we do live in such a safe community. One of the safest in all of Los Angeles. That still always holds true, right?
Couldn't agree more. The quality of life on the peninsula is second to none within the county of Los Angeles, and the crime statistics bear that out.
All right, but do you have a way of figuring out why the trend is, why it goes up, why it goes down? Is there a rhyme or reason to it?
Well, it's like with human nature, the cycle of crimes. It ebbs and flows. We'll have, significant arrests will stem an increase or a spike in crime for a period of time because we have a few individuals committing a majority or a large number of the crimes. Once they're taken off the streets, crime naturally goes down, and then so we'll have a down period until either they get out of jail or others who are bent toward criminal activity pick up the torch.
Well, great news that the city activity is slowing down, but as far as recent crimes that have made headlines on the peninsula, you obviously you patrol Palos Verdes Peninsula, but also Lomita. So anything that you've been working on that has sort of grabbed the headlines? We just know about the Ponga boat incident where the Ponga boat was ashore in Abalone Cove. Talk about some of those headline-grabbing incidents here. Okay,
well, we've had a few. The Ponga boat, as you mentioned, we had the Ponga landing just a few weeks ago, and it landed early in the morning. We were telephoned by a witness. Deputies got out there, and when they did, the boat had already landed at Abalone Cove, and it was empty. It had about 15 life jackets and some gas cans as well inside, but there were no occupants of the boat and no evidence of anybody that was attached to the boat around. The boat was eventually towed away by the Coast Guard, and we have a maritime task force that's handling the investigation, but we believe that it was human smuggling, part of that boat.
Right, and as you're getting to the Coast Guard handles the investigation, not your department, but obviously we hear about this in the community. People are nervous and concerned, whether it's human trafficking or drugs. Mm-hmm. Why Rancho Palos Verdes? Why are these boats picking here? You say there have been a lot of these incidents, but when we hear about it, one seems like too many.
Well, one is too many, but I would say to the residents, just rest assured, these do not happen very frequently in anywhere in the peninsula, but also, my personal theory is that they don't design to land over here just because we have protocol in place with the law enforcement family where we're, constantly looking out for this on land, and there are resources out in the water that are monitoring this as well. I believe when they're landing here, particularly around Abalone Cove or Rancho Palos Verdes, that it's a boat in distress and it's some sort of emergency landing for them because we have the thick kelp forest. We have, the jagged coastline. It's not conducive to a safe, quick, expeditious landing.
Right, and when investigators are looking into this, it's not obviously the people that are coming aboard or ashore, but also who's picking them up.
Well,
You've got to
exactly.
keep your eyes open for that. The residents need to be alert and aware and pay attention to that. Obviously,
Sure,
a van or
absolutely.
someone's picked those people up.
Right, it's going to be a van or it's going to be a truck because they're going to either, the cargo will be several humans or it will be, large shipments of, usually it's been marijuana. So, that's, if it's parked in on a trail or out of place somewhere and you have folks with binoculars looking out to the water, maybe even with flashlights as if they're providing some sort of signal to a boat, those are all suspicious activity that warrant a call to us.
Okay. That, of course, was recent. Anything else that was sort of grabbing headlines that brought your department into the spotlight, things you were trying to solve?
Well, yeah, we had, in fact, just the other day, it was nice closure to a case that we had. This was last July 2nd. We had a gentleman and his wife walking early morning hours at 6 in the morning, walking off of Golden Meadow in Rancho Palos Verdes. A car pulls alongside them. One of the occupants of the vehicle gets out, brandishes a weapon, and asks for their money. Well, again, being at 6 in the morning, they're out for just a walk. They didn't have any money on them, but they were able to get a good description of the suspects. There were 3 total, and the vehicle. And before the vehicle could get off of Palos Verdes Drive North and Western, we had the car stopped, and all 3 suspects arrested. And just this week, the 3 suspects pled guilty to the robbery charge. The one who brandished the firearm was sentenced to 8 years. The driver of the vehicle was sentenced to 6 years, 4 or 6 years, and the passenger got 2 years.
That's a very happy ending, because that could have been, a sticky situation
yeah.
for that couple. That's scary.
Yeah, absolutely, and something of not quite that level, but a crime that's plagued us nonetheless has been high-end alcohol thefts from pavilions in Rolling Hills Estates and also the Ralphs in Rancho Palos Verdes. We had one individual going in and taking vodka bottles and other high-end expensive alcohol, and we were able to get a photo of him, and through the great work of our detectives, they were able to identify him and then subsequently arrest him. And he did admit to many of the thefts, and he was telling us that he was exchanging those bottles of alcohol to feed his drug habit.
Well, you're solving a lot of cases. You guys are busy. Anything else you want to reference that you've been able to put closure on?
Well, we, our detectives, we have the city of Lomita as well, obviously, and we had a shooting at a bar back in December, and with really, once the deputies got out there, there was really not much to work with at the time. But again, our detectives and our patrol deputies, weren't going to take a closed door as closure, and they ended up investigating this, and we identified a suspect who lived outside of our area. We ended up serving a search warrant at his house. It was in Harbor City, and arrested a gang member for that shooting.
You're doing great teamwork.
Our detectives are fantastic, and because of their great investigative work, we're able to to solve many crimes and keep the crime rate low.
And how is big is your team, adequate? I mean, you always could use more help, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah, we'd always ask for more help, but with what we have, with what the city contracts for our services for each of the cities, and what the county gives us in terms of detectives that we have with supervisory staff and so forth, we get the job done.
Patrols are adequate for all the communities that you're.
Yeah, they get the job
and each community I would see it has different needs in terms of how you patrol those areas on the Hill.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As each city has its own personality,
right,
and has its own issues and concerns and so forth, and so we tailor our patrol and our services toward those unique qualities of the cities.
Right. Are you seeing any trends that obviously the good trend is that the crime is going down, but anything you've been here for 2 years now at Lomita, but anything specific that concerns you, that you're seeing more incidents of a certain type of crime or?
Well, as a matter of fact, yes, there are a couple of trends. One, the trend that we've seen of late in 2014, thefts from vehicles, accessories from vehicles, particularly batteries taken from vehicles, and they've been older model. When I say older model, we're looking at 1990-ish, early 2000 cars such as Toyotas and Hondas. But I'll tell you, Liz, the biggest trend that we have, and it continues to affect us on the peninsula, are thefts from unlocked vehicles. We're intensifying our efforts to educate the public, to get the word out, to make sure you secure your property outside of your vehicle and lock your vehicle at night. Most of the folks are complying, but we still see week in and week out thefts from vehicles that turned out to be unlocked.
Right. I know you personally have gone out and knocked on doors, right?
Yes.
To talk to residents about this, because obviously you're providing an opportunity for the crime to take place.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, the residents have been very receptive to that message and appreciative of our efforts going out there to remind them to do that. And Gail Lorenzen's been a true champion and with our neighborhood watch and her communicating that through her newsletters and through various communication that she has with her block captains to get that information out. So we're going to turn the tide, and we are making headway in that, but it's still a trend that we want to see a downward or descent.
It's only, for most of us, we have that click on our keychain, right? Keep it locked.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true. And sometimes
lock it or lose it.
Well, yeah, lock it or lose it. But sometimes that is not. They're not even being activated. The
Right.
alarm. So those that are keyless vehicles, it's easy, just one click of a button. But even the newer vehicles, we're seeing thefts from.
Right. I want to move on to a story that was in the news recently, and that had to do with 5 of your officers. There was 2 sergeants, 3 deputies that a federal civil jury just cleared. They were wrongfully accused of using excessive force in an incident that dated back from 2010. So could you just explain to the community what was the circumstances with this? And obviously you are completely relieved that all of your officers are exonerated.
Oh, absolutely. Our folks were vindicated by the truth. That was, as you said, Liz, that was 2010. It was in October when we received a call, the station did, of a vehicle that had hit a tree, and it was a hit and run. Vehicle had hit a tree. The driver fled the scene and was seen running to his residence, a short distance away. Deputies and sergeants got out to the scene, and they were told, who the driver was and where the driver went by the witnesses. They ended up going to the driver's home and attempting to conduct an investigation. But
And this is in Rancho Palos
This
Verdes.
is in Rancho Palos Verdes. The driver was very belligerent. He was completely uncooperative, and so the deputies' investigation couldn't get off the ground. And while they were trying to search him and control him at the scene, he ended up spitting in the eyes of one of our a female sergeant at the scene. And at that point, he was taken to the ground. He was handcuffed, and he was also pepper sprayed during that ordeal. And he was arrested. He was arrested for the hit and run. He was arrested for battery on a police officer. He attempted to spit on another officer at the scene. And what was interesting about that was there were surveillance or security cameras at the residence that captured essentially most of this incident. And when that information came, and that tape was played in court, it corroborated our deputies' reports and also their verbal testimony. So, and then when you consider that the plaintiff, the person who had sued us in this case, he did admit in court that he had lied to the deputies at the scene. He lied to the deputy or the sergeant here at the station afterwards during our investigation, and then he did lie to county attorneys during his deposition. So, it was based upon, all of that and all of the evidence that was presented at court. The jury unanimously sided with our folks. And then at the conclusion of the trial, the judge, which doesn't happen all that often, but the judge said the court had the opportunity to evaluate all the evidence in this case, and he wanted to commend our deputies and sergeants for their restraint in this case. So, to say that, I'm very proud of how they handled themselves, and the community we should be proud as well.
Right, and certainly in recent years, there's been a lot of focus on the quote use of excessive force by law enforcement. So everybody is almost, I'm sure, always on their best behavior, but even more aware of how they're handling during arrest times, especially. So, thankfully that they had the outcome that it did, and the process though, because we were talking, almost anybody when they get arrested could make a claim like this. Obviously, this person is in an emotional rage at the time, but when you look through the evidence, knew he was not wrongfully being handled.
Right, and there is a process for this. If somebody feels that they've been unjustly handled or that they've been wronged, by deputy sheriffs, then there is a formalized complaint process that they can make. They can either call, there's an 800 number that they can report to the department, or they can, as is usually the case, they'll report directly to the sheriff station here, and then we investigate all of these incidents and leave no stone unturned. And
I'm sure for those officers, it's undue stress on them to have to deal with that.
Well, without question, being named as a defendant in a federal lawsuit and then going before a jury in federal court is a very stressful thing. But yet, the deputies and sergeants knew that truth was on their side. As I said, they were vindicated by that. but they still have to set all of the concern about the lawsuit aside and come to work every day and do the professional job that they do. So, you know, they were our folks are the best.
All right. Speaking of the best, you always want to have the best happening here at your station. I want to move on to talk about just the latest technology that you're able to use as crime-fighting tools. Talk about what's been happening here in terms of, you know, you're meeting the technical needs and how technology is assisting you in doing what you do.
Yeah, you know, technology has really advanced. In my 28 years on the department, you know, we've really come, you know, made great strides in, you know, the technological advancement. One of the latest devices that we're using that incorporates technology is a device. It's a blue check device, which is similar to in size of a cell phone. And but what it does, it allows us to take a fingerprint of individuals out in the public, and then it electronically scans their fingerprint, sends the fingerprint off to a database, and that database is searched, and we can get the correct identity of the individual that we're speaking with. And this is helpful in cases where individuals that we encounter do not have hard identification on them, or they're giving us, you know, a variety of different names, or, you know, they're unsure about their birth date and so forth. So we feel like they're attempting to skirt us identifying them because there's outstanding warrants, or, you know, they're accused of a crime. They just don't want us to know who their true identity is.
Right.
We can take their fingerprint, and within minutes we have a return as to who they are, sometimes in about a minute's time.
Right. So that's when did that come on board in your department?
We've had that for a few years now, and it's in its second generation. So we have a more advanced version of it, which is synchronized with our computers, which are new in our car. Not new technology, but new to us. Having, you know, we have this newer version, the MDCs. And they're synchronized, the blue check technology with the mobile computers.
But just the ability to share information and get information, just the speed of being able to access information and deal with cases. Are you finding that's done more expeditiously now because of technology?
Without question, without question. You know, we can do what would take hours, or, you know, seemingly, you know, many hours, and in the past we can do now in just a matter of minutes.
Excellent. Anything else you want to add on that front that you want to, anything on your wish list that you want here at the Lomita station in terms of technology that's out there?
Well, we're still taking a look at that. You know, we're looking and always evaluating what's out there, and, you know, our department is doing that as well, and we're working with our cities to, you know, determine what will be the best fit for our needs here, and so that's we're always evaluating that.
Well, I know when I was here recently, when you had that new emergency mobile unit that goes out, that's completely outfitted with a lot of the latest technology. What's going on with that?
Yeah, we have our emergency command post, as we call it, and we have that, and we'll be having that deployed on April 5th for the city's Well of a Day event. Obviously, it'll be at the 4th of July city celebration, and it'll be we'll be taking it out many times during the summer for the good folks in the community to come walk through, take a look at it, and it'll be at various sites throughout our jurisdiction.
Right, like you said, it is an emergency command post. Right now you're using it just to let the community know that it's here, but obviously it's here for an emergency.
Oh, sure. You know, if there's any type of crisis where we can have a mobile command post, or a base of operations apart from the station, we'll deploy that trailer. But it's also used in our community outreach efforts, and we anticipate having many such events and occurrences throughout the next the months ahead.
You're pretty excited about getting that here.
We're very excited. It's been a long time coming. It took us several years to get it, and it's here, so we're going to make good use of it.
Well, we'll look forward to checking it out with our camera on Well of a Day. How about, one thing I always like to talk with you about is just our whole community, we depend on volunteers for so many things, especially you do here. Talk about the different opportunities for volunteers, the programs that they help you with, and how they help also, you know, serve the community this way at the sheriff's station.
Okay, well, you know, we're very appreciative of our volunteers. We rely on them for so much, but I have to thank you because you've asked me about our volunteer programs in our previous discussions, and I think that's helped us recruit additional RPV residents, because we've got over the past year we've had several step forward and become part of the team here. They're volunteers on patrol, or they'll go out in the white cars with the amber light bar, and they'll check homes where folks are on vacation. They'll work at our front desk, greeting the the citizenry as they come into the station, so they don't have to necessarily wait for somebody who's talking on a phone or tied up. But they'll also, we recognize them once they reach certain milestones, and we have a few in April. It's in fact April 6th through the 13th is National Volunteer Recognition Week, and we'll be recognizing as our department-wide our volunteers who've reached milestones for 1,000 hours of service, and I think we have 5 who've reached 1,000 hours of volunteer service, and we have one gentleman who has reached 20,000 hours, and he'll be recognized during that week by our department. His name's Bob Wilson.
Wow. And a lot of these volunteers you'll see right when you come in the station, if you're coming in to file a report or talk to somebody here, they're at your front desk helping you with the front desk work. Yes,
and our goal is to ensure that we have 7-day coverage. We're not quite there yet, but we do have, for the most part, 5-day coverage during the business hours of our volunteers. And what they do, our volunteers will, as you say, they're that first point of contact when the community walks into our lobby. So, and they've been very helpful. And many times
they're so professional. They seem like trained officers right there on the spot too. The way they come across.
Exactly. Many of them they understand what professional service is about. Many of them were in the service industry during their careers, and so they've just been a godsend for us.
Right. We're actually running out of time. I wanted to talk to you about a couple quick more things, and that is on the subject of volunteering in Rancho Palos Verdes. We have a Neighborhood Watch program that's extraordinary. You mentioned Gail Lorenzen earlier, who oversees it all. So important that we think of Neighborhood Watch as a way of helping solve crime, stop crime. Give me some, if you could, some specific recent incidences of how a Neighborhood Watch participant really made a difference in your ability to do your job.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a good question, and we rely on them as our eyes and ears out in the community because we remind them that they know their community better than we do, and they spend the majority of their time on the street, so they know what's suspicious behavior or what's out of place, and so we just encourage them to call us. And we had on Top Rail Lane in Rancho Palos Verdes a while back, we had a car that it had 2 gentlemen. One sitting in the car, one stepping away from the car, and just suspicious behavior that drew attention to themselves. So the Neighborhood Watch member saw this and called us. They gave us the license plate of the car, and as we dispatched deputies and they were responding, the return on the license plate revealed that the car had been stolen.
Wow.
So we had a number of deputies respond, and when they got there, they were able to detain the one person in the car right away. The second person took off running down a ravine. So we ended up having deputies scale down the ravine looking for him. We had a helicopter searching, and we had the perimeter, the area covered. And after a couple of hours, we found the second person. It turns out they had burglarized a couple of homes, and a second car that they had stolen was parked down the road. So this was a crime spree that was thwarted just from the one phone call from Neighborhood Watch.
And I know as myself, sometimes you'll see things and your gut instinct is something looks suspicious, but then you don't pick the phone up because you think, oh, I'm crazy, this really isn't. But I think gut instinct is always good to go with that.
If your sixth sense is telling you that something's just not right, it's probably not. The phone call is free, and you don't know what information we already have. If we have information, maybe that's the one piece of the puzzle that we don't have based upon what you can tell us.
So Neighborhood Watch definitely makes a difference in terms of being able to prevent and help you solve crime for sure.
We're successful in solving crime many times, in large part because of our Neighborhood Watch members.
We like to hear that. You've been with the Sheriff's Department, I think, almost 30 years. Is that right?
A little over 28 years.
All right, we'll get pushing it. But 2 years coming up here. And I just know, as captain, what is your biggest challenge right now?
Well, that's another good question. I would say my biggest challenge right now is we've lost excellent supervisors of late due to retirement. In fact, just the other night, I had a watch commander, after 32 years, retired. He worked his last shift. He'd been here 12 and a half years. 2 weeks prior to that, the last week in February, we lost, due to retirement, our detective sergeant, who had been at Lomita Station for 15 years. Prior to that, many months prior, we lost a stalwart sergeant here who had spent most of his career as a deputy and a sergeant due to retirement. And then, as you know, Dave Rosas and a few others who have been here for many years are looking at retiring, either by year's end or shortly thereafter. So the big challenge is I've been able to bring in replacements for those that are retiring, and they're great folks. Just they're not quite as seasoned.
Big shoes to fill.
So big shoes to fill, but they'll get the job done, and they're serving us very well. But that's been the big challenge is compensating for the loss of all that experience.
But you're enjoying your time here.
I love
Palos
it.
Verdes Peninsula.
I love
Beautiful
it.
place to patrol.
Best place to work. Love the station, love the people, love the community, and it's a great assignment.
As we wrap up, anything you want to add that you want the community to know about all happening here at the Lomita Sheriff Station? And obviously good news to tell the community that we're seeing the trend of crime down.
We certainly are. And one of the things I'd like to say is thank you to the community, because the support that we have and the support that the community expresses toward the men and women, the deputy sheriffs that work here, is tremendous. Sometimes the deputies, as we mentioned about they spend 4 years as defendants in a lawsuit, and it took them 4 years to vindicate themselves. But so there are the difficulties and challenges of the job, which we know and we readily accept. But it's always nice to get that pat on the back from the community, and this community does that very well. They recognize the outstanding work by the men and women here, and again, I want to thank the community for recognizing our folks here.
Let's give the community the websites, the great way to find out all that's going on. Certainly you give the crime stats and things like that are all posted.
Sure, all the crime stats are posted, and we have social media as well. So it's Lomita Sheriff Station. You can just in the Google or search bar, Lomita Sheriff Station, that will take you to our website, and you'll be able to search and find our Facebook page there as well.
Right, there's lasd.org, which is the entire sheriff's website, and you can navigate here
from
too.
there.
So great. Well, I always enjoy going on there because you show all that you're working on, and there's a lot of great information. Thanks again, Captain Bolin, for joining us here on RPV City Talk on the Road. I'm Liz Brown Swanson. Thanks for watching. See you next time.